Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In Palm Beach, under the bright Florida sun, Jessica Whitman, a wealthy and influential woman, gazed at her sumptuous pool from her marble terrace. She had always been proud of her impeccable lifestyle and her power over the upscale neighborhood. But that morning, a black man, Marcus Thompson, had just moved into the house next door with his family. Jessica, unaware of his true identity and guided by her prejudices, rushed towards him in an authoritative tone. She strictly forbade him from approaching or using the communal pool, implying that he was not respecting the social rules of their neighborhood. Marcus, calm and dignified, looked at her without immediately replying, revealing his perplexity and patience. But Jessica didn't know that Marcus wasn't just anyone. He was a renowned lawyer, a civil rights advocate, and the owner of a successful business. What she thought would be a simple settling would quickly backfire. The humiliation she intended to inflict would soon turn into a true karmic reckoning. When Marcus decided to respond, it wasn't with anger or confrontation, but with a subtle and relentless action that would force Jessica to confront her own prejudices and change her life forever. That day, Jessica Whitman would learn the hard way that bullying someone because of their skin color wasn't just cruel, it was destructive to herself. The sun beat down on Palm Beach that morning, and the warm air carried the salty scent of the ocean. Jessica Whitman, impeccably dressed in a white designer suit, stood by her shimmering pool, a cocktail in hand. She surveyed her property, content with its tranquility, until her eyes fell upon the silhouette of Marcus Thompson, her new neighbor, who was moving in with his family to the house next door. Without thinking, guided by a mixture of arrogance and prejudice, Jessica stepped towards the fence and called out in an authoritative tone. "Sir, this pool is strictly private. You have absolutely no right to use it or approach it in any way." Marcus, a man in his 30s, elegant but unassuming, looked up and gazed at her calmly. His brown eyes were full of serenity and quiet determination. He knew this woman knew nothing about him, and he didn't want to respond in anger. He simply said, "Thank you for the warning, but I have no intention of breaking your rules." Jessica, dissatisfied with this polite reply, leaned further over the fence and cried out contemptuously. "I'm not just talking about rules, sir. I'm talking about respect. I don't want your family here, and certainly not using my pool. Understand?" Marcus sighed inwardly. He knew this kind of behavior, but he was determined not to lose his temper. He knew that responding with humiliation or anger would only make the situation worse. After this tense exchange, Jessica returned to her lounge chair, proud of having cleared the air. But what she didn't know was that Marcus had already begun to consider how to right this wrong without compromising her dignity. And that, in the days to come, she would discover that beneath his ordinary exterior lay a powerful and influential person, capable of turning the situation around in ways she could never have imagined. This first contact, marked by arrogance and prejudice, was only the beginning of a series of events that would lead Jessica to bitterly regret her attitude. A few days after the confrontation at the pool, Jessica thought she had regained her peace of mind. But Marcus Thompson, far from being affected by her threats, was already discreetly pursuing a strategy to show that she couldn't intimidate someone with impunity. That morning, Jessica was hosting a reception for a select group of neighbors, proud to display her social standing and wealth. She had meticulously prepared the pool, drinks, and appetizers, imagining everything would be perfect. But when she signaled to a waiter to set the table, she noticed Marcus standing there, a file under his arm, a calm smile on his face. "Hello, Jessica," he said in a calm but firm voice. "I wanted to talk to you about a small detail concerning the condominium and the neighborhood rules." Jessica, surprised by his politeness, frowned. "Oh, Marcus. I thought you had nothing to do with this." Marcus pulled out some documents. "Actually, I reviewed the condominium regulations and it turns out that some of the restrictions you're imposing on your pool are not compliant. I also consulted the neighborhood committee, and it seems that any discrimination based on skin color is strictly prohibited." Jessica felt her blood run cold. She had thought she could intimidate Marcus, but now, faced with official rules and legal authority, she realized she had no power over him. Without losing his composure, Marcus added, "I never wanted to create conflict. I simply wish that we would respect everyone's rights." Jessica remained silent, unable to find a reply. Embarrassment gradually overwhelmed her. The neighbors, witnesses to the exchange, exchanged surprised glances, and some whispered among themselves, noting the subtle but firm way in which Marcus had gained the upper hand. That day, Jessica realized that underestimating Marcus and trying to intimidate him was not just a mistake, but a decision that would put her in a delicate and humiliating position in front of the entire neighborhood. She had just received her first karmic warning. In her attempt to dominate and humiliate, she had just found herself in the dock. A few weeks later, Jessica Whitman began to feel the first effects of her actions. Her previously impeccable reputation in the neighborhood began to falter. The neighbors, who had witnessed the exchange with Marcus, whispered and now looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and judgment. That morning, Jessica woke up with a feeling of unease. She had planned another reception at her pool, hoping to restore her image as an influential and respected woman. But when she went downstairs, she noticed that the gardener, the waiters, and even the house staff seemed slightly tense. Everyone knew that the story with Marcus had been circulating in the neighborhood, and no one wanted to take sides directly. As she nervously adjusted her white dress, her phone vibrated. It was a call from the condominium association. With a forced smile, Jessica answered. "Hello." "Yes?" The voice on the other end of the line, calm but firm, informed him that complaints had been filed regarding his discriminatory behavior towards Marcus Thompson, and that an official meeting would be organized to examine the situation. Jessica felt dizzy. She had thought a simple threat would be enough to keep Marcus away from her pool and her life, but now she found herself under the official scrutiny of the condo association and the entire neighborhood. She realized that her arrogance and prejudices had put her in a vulnerable position. That same day, Marcus arrived at the pool to politely greet his children, who were playing with his own. His calm, respectful, yet determined demeanor contrasted sharply with Jessica's discomfort. Every gesture from Marcus, every discreet smile he gave his children, reminded Jessica that she had been not only unfair but also humiliating to someone so exemplary and principled. That evening, as she sat alone on her terrace, Jessica felt a weight on her conscience for the first time. She began to understand that bullying and discrimination had a price, and that Marcus, far from being a weak victim, was in fact the one who now held the real power in this story. This was the first time regret hit Jessica hard, foreshadowing an inevitable turn of events that would drastically alter her life and her image in the neighborhood. A few days later, Jessica Whitman was preparing for a large reception organized by the condominium committee. She thought she could downplay the affair and restore her image, but she didn't know that Marcus Thompson had planned his own way of revealing the truth about the situation. When Jessica arrived at the common room, she was met by the stares of several neighbors and committee members. Everyone seemed calm, but a palpable tension hung in the air. Marcus then entered, elegant, smiling, but self-assured. He had prepared a short speech, not to humiliate Jessica, but to defend her rights and remind everyone of the respect they deserve. "Good morning everyone," Marcus began, his voice calm and clear. "I know that some recent situations have created misunderstandings. I would simply like to remind everyone that our community is based on respect and equality. We must all live together in harmony, regardless of our skin color or status." Jessica felt her heart swell when she heard the polite applause from the neighbors. But the real bombshell came when he added, with a slight smile, "I would also like to clarify that, despite the attempts at intimidation I have been subjected to, I remain impartial and wish that everyone be judged on their actions, not on their prejudices." At that moment, the committee chair turned to Jessica and formally informed her that her discriminatory behavior toward Marcus and his family had been noted. A symbolic but significant sanction was imposed. Jessica would be required to participate in community activities to promote tolerance and equality in the neighborhood. Jessica felt a mixture of shame and regret wash over her. She had tried to humiliate Marcus, but instead, she was the one under scrutiny and judgment. The most bitter part was realizing that Marcus, calm and dignified, had transformed the situation into a lesson in justice and respect. That day marked a turning point in Jessica's life. She finally understood that discrimination and arrogance never lead to victory, and that underestimating someone because of their skin color could have disastrous consequences. Marcus, through his patience and dignity, had not only protected her rights but also transformed Jessica, who left with a sense of shame and profound reflection on her actions. Thus ended the final chapter of this confrontation. Intimidation had been punished, respect restored, and Jessica Whitman had learned the hard way that true power lies in integrity and justice, not in arrogance and prejudice.